Welcome to the Alain Elkann interviews, an unprecedented window into the minds of some of the most well-known and respected figures of the last 25 years.
Your life is very interesting because you just have been creating this amazing show, this amazing event in the Arsenale in Venice, Valentino Des Ateliers project last week. And in the same time, you have this glamorous work, these glamorous shows. But from your biography, it looks like that you have a very simple life, right? You don't even live in Rome. You have a wife and children and a dog, and you lead quite a simple life.
Yeah, I live in the place where I grew up, in the same place where I wanted to escape when I was a kid. Then with Simona, we decided to stay there and to let our children to grow up in the same place because it's authentic. Our children go to public school. Everything is, I don't know if simple, but it's what we feel the most confident in. I don't want to change my life. I really love my job, but I want to be very faithful to who I am because I think it's very important. I always used to say that when I was a kid, I was dreaming of couture, fashion, even cinema before. And everything was looking so far from me, from that place where I was living. Then when I arrived in first before in Venice, then in Valentino, I had the opportunity to see for the very first time in my life the couture so closely. And I decided that I didn't want to miss the enchantment I had when I was a kid, to be so far and to look like with that kind of enchantment. Because I remember very well that I had images in my life. I was looking at couture through images, not from reality. So when I saw the reality of the clothes, I understood that there's always a projection of yourself when you see an image. And I wanted to keep that projection because that was my identity.
What kind of studies did you do? I mean, where did you start your life? I mean, you come from this city nearby Rome and your wife too. So you are together since a very long time.
So long time. We grew up together, I would say, yeah.
And how old are the children?
24, 20 and 15.
And they still stay there or they went to university or they went somewhere else?
They go to university, they study in Roma, but they're still with us in Nettuno. It's like we are a very common family.
From the interviews I watched or I read about you, you declare yourself not only an Italian, but a Roman. And you're very interested in Italian different kind of cultures, from Pasolini's movies or Antonioni movies, Fellini movies, to actors like Marcello Mastroianni, to writers, also artists, painters, and so on and so forth. Why did you decide to go into fashion?
Actually, it just happened. I didn't plan it. Maybe cinema could be one of my dreams too. It just happened. I started from the pictures of fashion. I was very interested because in a way they gave me the feeling of like frames of, I was wondering what was before and what was after that frame of the picture. So I understood that with fashion you could tell stories as well as in cinema. And it just happened. I went to the Instituto Verne and I started working. And when you're young, you don't really plan what you want to do. You follow your instinct at the moment. And then now I'm more aware, of course, that probably I never did a stage in my life because when I started working fashion, my family didn't really understand what I was trying to do.
Was Valentino a real maestro for you, someone who has taught you a lot in all these years you worked?
As you were saying, Fellini, Antonioni, Pasolini, and the Italian Renaissance paintings, and Valentino as well, are parts of the very Italian culture. I think Valentino in 80s and 90s was kind of part of the Italian culture. Maybe I absorbed a lot of that. I was kind of obsessed by couture. Valentino Saint Laurent, Yves Saint Laurent, Cristobal Balenciaga, they kind of maestros of couture cut the big drama of couture. And there was something that really always moved me. But now I know that. When I was young, I was like fascinated by Valentino, but I didn't really know why. That's why when they hired me for the very first work from the school, there were a lot of us doing this interview. And I was the youngest in the group. And I said, yes, but they chose me. But I asked to be paid because to me, it was important. Now I know that I had kind of demonstrate that could be a work and not only a passion or a hobby.
That's why you became, I don't know exactly when, but you are today creative director of Valentino. And if I am not wrong, to be creative director doesn't only mean to be the stylist, but many different kind of jobs. You overcome all what is creative inside the Maison Valentino, right? From the objects to the accessories, to the man, the woman, the défilé.
Yes, you're right. When you are a creative director, you are designer, of course, of clothes, accessories, collection, couture, whatever. But you're also kind of responsible of the values that you deliver as brand. So collections become like keys through you deliver the values of the brand, hopefully the values you believe in too. That's why I think that Valentino is my place, because it's a place where I can easily talk about my aesthetic, my vision of beauty, because our job at the very end is just about witnessing our times through an idea of beauty. That's our vision of beauty.
You obviously showed your beauty, your clothes, your things in Paris. You did recently this incredible event, which was like a show in itself in Venice. You are well known in America, in the Far East, and many other countries. But you are in Rome, right? And the city of fashion in Italy is Milano, if I'm not wrong, right? I mean, it has been Rome just after the war, maybe before the war, but nowadays fashion is Milano, right? So how it is to be in Rome? Is it far away from the center? Is it much better because you have more time or more beauty surrounding you?
I reflected many times about being Roman. I feel that being Roman means that you kind of absorb that effortless beauty of the city. In the city, there are many layers, as you can witness every day. We have from Baroque to Pasolini, from the Roma Imperiale, every kind of Caravaggio in the church while walking the city. So you don't really care about that beauty. It's just there and you enjoy it. In these kind of layers that create a sort of balance, a life balance, because even the past is part of the present. I think that's something that really influenced me in my vision of beauty. Of course, being far from Milano, now I'm fine. I'm very proud to be Roma. I feel that our atelier, made of Roman people, most of all, is a way to be more unique, because it's still about identities. But when I was young, of course, being Roman, you were like the uncool guy of fashion. Now it's fine. Now you don't really care about it.
The brand Valentino, let's say, was very well known because very famous stars or United States wives of presidents, queens, princesses were wearing Valentino very elegant dresses, right? And you just did something, haute couture, what is called haute couture, no? In a world where most people buy at Zara, Uniqlo, NH. How can haute couture survive nowadays? And what does it mean? Is it just a vitrine, like a window on the world to show what fashion is, and then all the other things come with it? Or which women nowadays are interested in buying haute couture or can afford to buy haute couture?
When haute couture was born, it was meant to be for women that could buy haute couture or department stores. So that's why the women that wearing haute couture were wearing haute couture from the morning to the night, every day for the cocktail, so kind of occasions. Now I feel haute couture is like the ultimate limited edition. Of course, the women that today buy couture wear also denim, wear sneakers, wear maybe things from Zara, why not? And they can mix couture with everything. That's why, to me, couture today is not about the tailleur or the cocktail dress, but it's about a self-expression. The women that want to buy couture today want to be bold, they want to be unique. Couture is a celebration of uniqueness, is a celebration of one-of-a-kindness. I don't think that the shapes have to be close to the past. I think you can update the shapes, you can you can embrace a different world, which of course is different, it's changed. And you have to know that I think it's fine when a woman buys a couture coat and she wears with a pair of denim and a t-shirt. That's what couture is meant to be. So it's not to be like a total look. It's not pictorial anymore. That's what I'm trying to do. In Valentino was very known for the idea of lifestyle, right? The big cast, the bags, the beautiful women, and the cast. I think lifestyle is all about surfaces. What I'm trying to do today is to include the people that can afford the beauty, at least. When you go to a museum, you don't need to buy something. You can just afford the beauty and feel welcome in this idea of world. I want to create a kind of community rather than a lifestyle. A community is a group of people that share same values. I hope that when you see celebrities like Frances McDormand or this last Oscar night, Frances McDormand, Zendaya, Carey Mulligan wearing my collection, you feel that they are beautiful, glamorous as they were in the past, but they share the same kind of values because they stand for the same values I stand for. So it's like creating a sort of link which is deeper than just the aesthetic. It's more emotional, but it's about the values, which is the strongest link.
There's one thing that even if fashion is not art and art is not fashion, obviously you understood or you wanted to have like other famous designer like Yves Saint Laurent or others, a strong dialogue with the world of art. And you showed this in Venice, not only mixing or trying to make into clothes works of art inside the clothes or being the clothes themselves, but also you use something that is coming back very strongly, maybe because of the sadness of this pandemia or this COVID-19, which is a strong use of colors. Valentino is famous for the red, but you still have the red, but many other strong colors. Was that influenced by the artists or you influenced the art, or how does it come?
When I started thinking of this collection, I was actually in need of connections. That was what I was really missing, the idea of connection, of confronting with other people. So that's why I decided to create this sort of factory of people witnessing the same moment from different perspectives. And yes, I do think that fashion is not art, but just because I feel that art is art for our sake, while fashion has to be related with our body. So they have different purposes. Saying that, to me, it means that I want to do a kind of statement even about fashion, because fashion is a language, as art is a language. And through fashion, you can witness your time, you can deliver values, you can lead a change for the world that you're living. Being in dialogue with artists, with other people, means to talk with each one with its own language and having a real conversation. Say that I choose most of them were painters, probably because I feel that painting is in art like what couture is in fashion, is probably the oldest way of expression. And they were like all bidimensional works. I had to move, to shift the dimensionality into something that had a movement and that was moving with the body. So I didn't want just to create, the couture dress with the painting applied on top, like a museum T-shirt. I wanted to work with the artists in order to create this movement and this dimensionality with our own instruments. So anything was painted on top of the clothes, but was just embroidered or with intarsia, or so different techniques. And it was interesting to me. It was like a path, actually, till Venice. But confronting with this artist, having a long Zoom conversation, showing them what we can do, and while they were showing us what their spirit, because it changed a lot. When you're talking with the artist, changing my ideas while doing things, because I wanted not just to translate the surface of an artwork, but I wanted to get the same spirit of the artist. And so that's why we decided to move and to say the last dress, the James Nares dress, was definitely influenced by the conversation with him here. Because when I met James, I wanted to contact him because he was a painter that uses his body with these big brushes made just with one sign. And I was really interested in the effect. Meeting with him, I understood that he was in a moment of transition at the age of 68. So I decided not to do the coat I had in my mind, but to do a very feminine, very drama dress, because it was more meaningful. And when she came in Venice as Jamie Nares, and seeing the last dress of the show, that was the dress of coming from our conversation. It was like the end of a moment that was both professional and personal, because it was like the body was so important in her artwork. And seeing her artwork becoming like the most feminine dress was like very moving and very emotional for all of us.
Your attention to the body, it reminds me a conversation I had, sadly, before he died, of my friend Albert Embaz, who probably was also a friend of yours.
Friend of mine, yeah.
And we had a long conversation about this thing of the body, right? To give a chance to any kind of woman in the world to be proud of her body through clothes. I mean, he didn't speak much about art as you do, and therefore, obviously, you're probably very different, but somehow there is a fil rouge between this idea of the body, right? And probably you were inspired by art because art is a universal language also. I mean, fashion is not as universally, and plus, because it's fashion, probably it doesn't last. Fashion is not made to last, right? Like art. The notion of body in art is very important, and also in fashion, but the use of the body is very different because the art has no practical purpose. You're not going to wear a painting.
That's something that really divides the art from fashion. That's why I'm saying that fashion is not art, because the purposes are different. It's impossible, but I feel that fashion can have the same dignity of art witnessing times. I think I'm with you when you say that fashion is not forever. It's not timeless as art should be, but our wish is to witnessing your times while staying forever. Because what did Saint Laurent, it was exactly this. He was leading a change of the women in 70s. And what the collection he did in 70s and 80s were witnessing the big change of society. And they were of the moment, of course, but they will stay forever because they are witnessing a change of society, not only of the clothes. That's why I think that it's important when you do fashion and you are a designer to be aware that you have a voice, and hopefully you use your voice not just to say how many ruches or bows are on the skirt, but also to use your voice to lead that change of the world, doing men and women couture.
The haute couture is still the haute couture, but how many things have changed since you started in the haute couture? What is the difference between a dress that was made 20 or 30 years ago and a dress that is made today? Is there a big difference? As you say that the fashion is witnessing its time, right? The very time in which we live. What did you change? For instance, now we went through this COVID-19. We are in the middle, maybe, of this COVID-19 experience, which nobody of us had imagined before. Were you inspired by this? How do you witness this through fashion?
I started in January with the men couture. That doesn't mean men couture, it means haute couture, because I decided not to do a label for men, a label for women, but doing couture. And it means that you do haute couture for different person. And in January, it was even much more dark at this moment. I know that it was like a hope of a moment where we were going out from COVID, of a world with no boundaries, of gender, cultures, sizes, whatever, ages, whatever it is. Because you understand in that moment that values are much more important than barriers, than having boxes. I don't work with words. I work with image. And my values are delivered through the image itself. When 2 years ago, I decided to do this collection that was kind of classic haute couture collection, because I was looking at the pictures of haute couture from the grand haute couture, say Cecil Beaton kind of picture, the salon. And I was thinking that when haute couture was born, it was meant to be for women, like swans, beautiful women. But haute couture is a celebration of uniqueness, and Black women were not allowed to go even at the same toilets of these women. So I was just seeing this picture, say, what if you change the faces, the women wearing these clothes, kind of doing the same clothes. So I did a collection which was full of cliché of couture, flowers, ruffles, bows, big bats worn by 50 Black women, rather than the stereotypes of the girls you used to see in couture. I think that was a big change, because when seeing the big image at the end of the show with all these Black ladies celebrated and giving them this kind of dignity, wearing the grand haute couture, it was much more than any other words than talking about Black Lives Matter or whatever, because it was before. Same here. When you see on the runway when you see on the runway of Venice, men and women kind of sharing the same wardrobe, you don't really feel that it's men or women, but just people on the same runway. You don't need to talk about Black, white, whatever, Caucasian, whatever. You don't really feel about who they are, but you feel you have a picture of the moment of a world with no boundaries. And you don't need to talk about equality, because it was there, the idea of equality. And if my neighbors sees the runway and thinks that it's normal, my mission is accomplished. I don't need to add any other words. As well as 2 years ago, I didn't have to add the words to talk about Black culture, because if my same neighbors would see the picture and feel that it was normal to see all these Black beauties wearing grand haute couture, my mission was accomplished. I want to work through image because I am a designer, and I choose to be a designer to use that as a language. That's why I also use it in this collection. Some codes I already used before, say the hats, the feather hats, I used it 3 years ago in a different way. But if it is a language, it's like having a vocabulary. And if you have a vocabulary, you have your own words. So why not? You can reuse your own words in a different way to say a different story, to talk about a different story. That's the thing.
At the beginning, we talked about the fact that you were influenced in your life and, very much interested in taken by Italian filmmakers and classic films like Pasolini, like Rossellini, like Fellini, and so on and so forth, and Antonioni, and so on and so forth. But today, the fashion shows, like the one in Venice, they become more like ballet, like theater, like cultural events. You are, on your own way, a director. Yes, you show clothes and there is no story like in a film, but still the layout, the attention that is given to the show in itself is something quite new, no? I mean, fashion became uno spettacolo in somewhere.
You have to know that when I start every collection, I start with a very kind of precise picture in my mind. From that moment on, when I have in my mind what is going to be the final picture, I start back and I start creating the collection, the colors, embroideries, casting, everything. But everything is chosen in order to arrive to that kind of picture. And that in that picture, I want to involve all the people that work with me every day. When I do fittings with my premiere, with the people I work with, I don't ask them 1 centimeter less here, 1 more here. I want them to move and to give this kind of feeling, the feeling of lightness. I don't want to feel the efforts of the technicity, because when you show too much of technicity, I think you miss the magic of fashion. So I want to try to explain them what is my final picture, because when you choose 2 colors, one is good and the other one can be good as well. But I choose the one that is closer to my final picture. So that's the way of selection between 2 things.
The color of this collection, was it green?
There were many colors actually together.
There is a specific dress that was very green. I know you were doing red and other colors, but this green seemed to me...
I'm more interested in the balance of the colors together, because I think you don't invent colors, right? You cannot invent color, unluckily. But you can invent new balances of color, new harmony of color. So this is fashion, this is music. You don't invent new even words. You don't invent new words, new notes, new colors. But you can link together 2 things that usually are far, and you have a new balance, you have a new harmony. To me, that's the real thing. So that's why I don't think to one color, but to the harmony of the color, the feeling of, say, joy, hope that I want to deliver at the end of the show in that kind of frame, because La Biennale was very specific as frame. I didn't want art to be part of the packaging of the collection. I wanted art to be in the creative process, because the link in the factory was creativity. And so I didn't want art to be, say, the surrounding of fashion or the alibi of fashion.
But they were together.
I wanted them in conversation, and being in La Biennale, in that kind of metaphysical space as like a genre, it was the real thing to me. And I started in thinking of Venice, La Biennale, because when I started, it was a moment when I couldn't think of doing a show in presence in Paris. Then at a certain moment, like say March, April, maybe, it was kind of possible to do the show in presence as they did in Paris. And we were thinking of changing our mind and doing more, to be more thoughtful, probably to be in Paris, to have the press people already there. But at the end, I felt that it was not the same. It was not as the picture I had in my mind. So to me, it was difficult to shift from that final picture into something else. And so that's why we stayed there, and we decided to end the collection as it was started.
I want to ask you something. Valentino is obviously glamour, right? It's certainly expensive somehow, but you said that you like to stay with young people, listen to young people, and you learn a lot from young people. But these young people cannot afford to buy Valentino, can they?
Yeah, but I don't talk about young people. I love young people because they are free, most of all. If I talk with the people with free mind, I like that. I don't care about ages. But yes, most of the young people maybe cannot afford beauty, couture, but I used to think this. If you go to a museum, you get your kids to a museum and you don't promise them to buy the painting they're looking at. You just educate them to beauty and to the fact that we are all different. We are all witnessing something from our point of view. We are trying to deliver our own deep emotion through painting. So you don't want to buy the painting. You just want to educate kids to something different. And I have to say, young generation, because they are more free. They stand for values they believe in. They're not menefreghisti. I don't know how you say in English, but
careless.
Careless, yeah. To me, it's interesting because you educate them to lead the change that was needed now.
So you give them a dream, you give them a style. Do you also give them the idea of a métier, of mestiere? Because you said before that you like to involve in your shows, in everything, all the atelier. I mean, all the people who work with you, and you like to use the word atelier. But this is very much like the Italian classic Renaissance bottega kind of idea, right? Then now you are the Raffaello, the Michelangelo, but there are many other people who are very good around you. There are Giulio Romanos or others.
You know, in the designers in Italy have been depicted in decades like the solo big designers that were alone in their rooms with flowers, candles, and inspirations. I feel that if I didn't have these people with me, I couldn't make my dream come true. So I thank them every day for their passion, because you don't need only technicity. You need people that are involved with you in the same dream. That's why I think I have to inspire them, to explain them my picture, because I want them to put their passion, their care, their love every day. If not, I think you miss something in a dress. There's something that stays on the material, I feel. And that Bottega dell'Arte is valid only if people are really passionate about that. Today, if you talk in the digital era, as they used to say, that you talk about the poetry of doing something with your hands, the métier, as you said, is very fascinating. I have now in the atelier 2 ages, more or less. The women, the girls, the ragazze, as you say in Italian, and even in of 60s, and the young generation of 30s. We don't have the middle generation, because the middle generation were born with the idea of working girl, being career. So doing something like a métier was not dignifying their passion. So there are people in their 60s that had this opportunity to work in the atelier. Now people in their 20s or 30s, most of them are also graduated. They choose to be here and they choose to be in the atelier. So it's very different. They have a dignity. That's why I think it's important, even from my side, to give them dignity, to give them value, because if not, couture won't exist anymore first. And we will miss that idea of Bottega dell'Arte that France usually has its flag, but actually Bottega dell'Arte is Italian part of the culture. It's in the Italian roots.
It must be difficult to create all the time something new, right? To find inspiration for many years and to change and to adjust. But how do you work?
I try not to forget every day who I was. I was a kid that was dreaming of doing fashion and being in this world. So I don't want now to be the bored and lazy designer that feels pressure. I still feel that this is a great opportunity for me. I'm still the same kid that didn't change as much. So that's why I'm saying that I want to take in mind every day how far I felt from everything. And now I still feel lucky, actually. I still feel this as an opportunity. I'm not obsessed of doing something different. I just understood with aging to let my emotions flow with the thoughts, everything in a more kind of fluid way. Before, probably, I was kind of dividing my job from who I am. Now, everything is much more overlapped. So, inspiration can come from someone who I'm talking with, but inspiration to me are always person, never like surfaces, paintings, exhibition. Probably emotion I have from something, but more from humans. I think humanity is the real inspiration, always.
But when you were in the backstage in Venice, right, just before all the shows went on, right, we talk about this because it's your last show, and I have two questions. Did you have the same emotion and the same sort of fear or preoccupation that you had at the beginning? And now that you had this success, this event, are you already thinking to the next step?
First, I'm a control freak. So to me, it's keeping control of those moments, like the moments before the show, means to be in control of everything. That's why just before the show, I was talking with all the kids, all the girls on the runway, trying to explain them that they were not modeling for me. They were just person. They had to be proud of being in this big picture of equality. I was trying to explain them, even to involve them in my own dream. Because if they're not part of, it's difficult. You have just models on the runway and they don't give you something. I think that anyone can give piece of himself, herself on the runway. And so I was talking with Cosima. She was performing after music. We were talking about our feeling that moment, talking with the moment. I just relax when everything is done. In the meanwhile, the girls and the guys go out, I'm there giving the go to go. So like keeping the videos, and then that's my way of controlling fears. Even when my children were born, I was like in control of everything. And my wife said, she was saying, come on, stop it. But that's my way of keeping control. And yes, I'm already working on next collection.
This is similar to sports, right? I mean, like someone who is a champion and wins a race or tennis game or football match, they always think to the next, right?
Always.
Can you tell me a little bit, what do you have in mind next?
Actually, I don't really change the way, the big values, the big things I want to deliver as the values. I just want to change the way you talk about same big things, big dreams. It will be different, of course, because I always feel that it's important to move away and not to indulge in something that was good. I always find to look for the mistake I can see, because from the mistake, I start always next collection. I'll try to look for the mistakes.
You kept the name Valentino, right? Because it's the name like someone else has the name Chanel or the name Dior or the name Saint Laurent, whatever. But Valentino is you. And what is Valentino today? If you had to talk to describe you and what you made out of Valentino, what is your Valentino today?
His freedom, his equality, is still beauty, but it's more beauty of the identity rather than beauty of the aesthetic. It's deeper. It's maybe more two-dimensional. That's what I feel. I don't want to be a dictator of fashion. I want to propose values through fashion. What is different? I think I'm different. I want to be relevant in this world, in this moment. I want to embrace the world of today. I want to face it and not to live in the past. I feel, as I was telling you before about Roma, I feel that Mr. Valentino himself is part of my job, because I work with him, because I have a lot of respect of the heritage of what he did. But without nostalgia, I think that this house welcomed me years ago, and I'm very grateful for this. But I have to be very faithful to who I am. And of course, being in Valentino since 20 years is also part of my DNA now, of my identity itself. So it's like a past that lives in the present, but is definitely present. What Valentino today is about now.
You said that in your collection, or the last one, for instance, there are many, many kind of genres of people showing, right? There's no one type of woman or one type of man. They all mix in a unique thing. So imagine that you were a professor and you have a class in front of you and you have students from many different countries, boys, girls, Chinese, Africans, Germans, whatever, right? Many different parts. What would you teach them if they say, listen, we want to be designers, we want to work with you, we want to become the new fashion people? Is still fashion a job that you recommend? And what would you say basically that is good for everyone, any country, any race?
I would tell them to be faithful to who they are, not to change, not to feel that they have to follow the rules, the stereotypes. They don't have to be in a box. They have of the designer kind of cliche. I think that I arrived where I am because of where I was too, and I didn't follow any rules. I was as I told you, the uncool coming from the seaside, and probably that's part of who I am today. I still feel not the one who grew up with the grandmother couture dresses. It is fine. And that probably gave breath to my dreams. So I would tell them to go deep in their identity, to be very faithful to that, not to follow the rules, and to be free to express something. If you are a designer, you have to tell something that is beyond fashion. Only if you deliver something deeper, something more kind of emotional that touches you. Kant used to say that through beauty, you can move emotion. And if you move emotions, you can create interest and curiosity. I think that's the same of fashion, of music, of cinema. I think through your idea of beauty, because that has to be very personal, the idea of beauty you deliver, you can create emotions.
What do you ultimately want is to make a woman beautiful, that she feels beautiful, comfortable with herself?
I want people to be proud of who they are, exactly how they are. Same both for men and women. I always look for grace more than beauty for people. The harmony that comes from aura is not a beauty. It's about something that comes from inside and outside together. And you can look for the same in both in men and women. I look for romanticism, which doesn't mean prettiness, means being very personal, very close to yourself. And when I see different people, one different from the other, but linked by the idea of individuality, of uniqueness, one of a kind, I think that's what I want to deliver. Not feeling beautiful, feeling proud of who you are.
But you feel proud of being Italian, right?
I do, of course.
And you insist on the value of being Italian.
Sure. But because that's what I know. I grew up here. I don't want to be, it's just what I am. And I don't try to be something else.
The Valentino man or woman or young man or old woman is your interpretation, right? It's who you are.
Kind of, yes.
This is half of a joke. As we started saying that you live in a city near Rome and you have a simple family life, are your wife and daughters dressing Valentino?
Of course, not only, but of course. They also wear, pieces like much more common. So not only Valentino, of course. But, to go back to your joke, I feel welcomed in fashion, even if I was not the cliche of the designer. So I feel that it's important to deliver this idea of come as you are. You will be welcomed. That's the most interesting idea of beauty for me.
Thank you very much, Pierpaolo.
Grazie.
Alain Elkann interviews.